Hello, good morning. Welcome to OT Cyber Coffee Minute with Hillstrong. I'm Kara. I'm joined by Roger Hill, our founder. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning.
I have a question for you this week coming from LinkedIn. What is the difference between a gap assessment, a risk assessment, a maturity assessment, and a vulnerability assessment? And which one should we be doing first?
Well, I'm going to give you the classic engineering answer. It depends. So they all have their own purpose and unique value, if you will. Let's start with the maturity-based assessment. So one of the things that I actually like to do at the organization level in order to understand what is the current state of a program across people, process, and technology, I like to use a maturity-based assessment, typically using like a NIST CSF or C2M2. There's multiple standards that could be used in this regard. Uh, One of the more popular maturity-based assessments to utilize is the CMMI. That's the Capability Maturity Model Integration. What's really interesting, if you go look at the site there's many different integrations. Anyway, what the maturity based integration is looking at different states. So you are starting at your initial state, where everything is maybe ad hoc. The work gets done, but maybe not the most efficiently, right? We don't necessarily have any work instructions, and it's a lot of what we call tribal knowledge and firefighter mode. The next stage is really that defined state. We might have some local procedures or processes at a localized scope, if you will, but there's really nothing across the centralized work or just organization. Wow, Kara, I think it might be time for some more coffee. Uh, but let's continue. The next level is really where you're at that managed state. And this is where you do have that centralized policies and procedures and processes, right? And then finally, you get to the quantitatively managed. And this is that level 4. And we really don't go beyond that in OT because I've never seen it. Level 5 is fully optimized, and what that means is you're investing a ton of money on technology to really automate and really ensure a continuous improvement. So you take this model, this level 1 through 5, and you apply it to your different security standards, and that defines where you are today. And then you overlay this with something I like to use, which is the initial operating capability. Think of that as your mid mark, and then your future operating capability. That's your end state you would like to get to. With these two measurements, current, IOC, and FOC, what you can do is overlay this across a multi-year strategic roadmap. And this gives you some good milestones to actually measure. So like I said, this is a really good way to measure your overarching program at the organization level. Now, does that mean we should use it everywhere? No, it doesn't. So for example, if you think of another use case in industrial, with the IEC 62443, there's the 4-1, which is the secure development lifecycle. This is all about a vendor that is producing a component and ensuring that they are producing that component in a mature and a secure way, if you will. It's really important from a vendor perspective to be able to communicate this to their clients that they're doing things in a responsible way. How that certification works is based upon a CMMI type model. There's other versions such as 2-4, part of that series, that also use maturity. So maturity has its place. Now, at that plant level, though, especially for some critical operations, this is where utilizing a risk assessment is a good idea to understand what is your baseline, what is your risk of your cyber physical system, and that process that's being automated, whether that's a chemical facility, whether it's a water treatment facility or whatever the case may be. Now, there's multiple ways of approaching that as well in terms of that risk calculation. Some of the risk calculations will use some of the more of a classic likelihood times, threat times impact. And to get to this risk score, now with cyber-informed engineering, there's more techniques around impact. And I think one of the really useful tools that's available to us is with really that cyber PHA or process hazard analysis, giving us the bow tie methodology. All of these are different types of risk assessments. So risk assessment definitely have a place. They're typically a lot more effort. There can be a high effort or a very detailed assessment. So with doing a risk assessment, this is really good to establish a baseline. So one of the things that you can consider is across your fleet, if you can, and the fleet meaning the fleet of manufacturing sites or processing sites you may have, is what is the different tiers of risk. So if I can establish a baseline for each tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then theoretically I'm doing this on a periodic basis, once a year, depending upon your size of your fleet, that's achievable or not. Last but not least, the gap assessment. So the gap assessment can actually be a very effective tool. It's most typically used in the context of compliance or around audits. So part of your audit program, you might have come up with a punch list of 20 requirements for your organization for your tier 1 sites. So then you have your audit teams that are actually going out. And of course, these are the very popular people doing an audit, right? So they're going out there and doing this audit. And part of that gap assessment is looking at that requirement and saying that requirement is fully met, it's partially met, or it's not met, or it's not applicable. So it's a really quick measure of where am I based upon my requirements or whatever that function is. So gap assessment is a really good way for an organization to really understand where are they and where are they in terms of making progress. So those are the more popular types of assessments. They each have their place within the ecosystem of managing really operational resilience.
Yeah.
So hopefully that provided a sufficiently long-winded answer to answer that question.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and giving us that great explanation. And thanks for watching. And this is your reminder to go have a cup of coffee, tea, Red Bull, whatever gets you through your morning. Have a great day. Thanks.